Welcome everybody to today's webinar about hearing instrument transition, how to ease the transition from old to new. This webinar is part of a free webinar series presented by Otometrics. If you go to our website, otometrics.com/webinars, you will be able to find a full list of all the topics that we have presented in the past year. So today's presenter is Peter Kosek, and Peter Kosek is a Senior Product Manager for Fitting Systems at Otometrics. My name is Mette. I am a Marketing Manager also at Otometrics, and I will be the moderator of today's session. Before we start, just a few practical information. All of you are muted, basically to reduce the background noise during Peter's presentation. It is, of course, possible for you to ask questions to Peter. If the questions are related to the presentation, we will sort of collect all questions and then answer them at the end of the session. If they're related to technical issues, we will of course help you as fast as we can. There might be a few delay during the presentation, but the slides will catch up automatically, so don't worry about that. And again, the webinar will be recorded and will be, a link will be sent to you as soon as we have it online, but it can also be found online on our website together with previous webinars. So I will hand over to Peter to get started.
Thank you very much, and as this is an international list of participants, I would like to say good morning, guten Tag, bonjour, dzień dobry. So let's get started. This is really an interesting area because it seems like there is a common understanding of what this is about. People recognize the situation, and it's actually a simple procedure that we'll look into that will solve a pretty practical issue. So we will start off with looking at the challenge, the tools, the conclusion, and the questions, as Mette mentioned already. So let's look at the challenge. Well, if we look at long-term wearers, they tend to build up preferences in knowing what they have, being comfortable with what they have. So that means that once they are calm, collected, and used to their situation and know how to cope with it, they often hesitate to change, even though they may actually need to change. So with that starting point, once they are planned to get a new hearing instrument, the adaptation period can be prolonged if the new hearing instrument doesn't sound like the current one, because there is a barrier there. So, and again, if we look into the severe to profoundly hearing impaired listeners, that situation or that scenario becomes even more valid and even more extreme. So the downside is that there is a delayed access to the potential benefits of the developments of new technology that these people are lacking, and certainly they need it. So that is a very broad palette, and adding to this, we can say that actually even people that are very comfortable and very proficient in using the current technology, they then need change and they need more flexibility. They maybe need more assistive devices to compensate for the change needs and the ability that the hearing instrument technology can provide them. And you can read more about this in the article referenced below on this slide. The potential consequences of not getting the help that is available out there can potentially be pretty severe. Underutilization can translate into declining social skills, reduced personal contact, and the lack of stimulation from others. That is, some of the consequences can really be increased risk of dementia and increased risk of depression. So the potential consequences are really severe. This is why it's so important that such a central element can be solved, and it can actually be solved easily. So the tool that we were talking about is called the HI transition, meaning hearing instrument transition. So it's a smooth procedure for transitioning a customer from current to new hearing instrument. It's based on comparative measures, meaning that we will be making measurements on the current hearing instrument and the new one at various levels to find what is the difference and try to minimize these differences. So instead of making a target curve, like NAL or DSL or whatever, we're simply making the performance of the output of the current hearing instrument the target for the new hearing instrument. So it's actually really simple. The approach can be applied both as a real ear and a coupler measurement, meaning with or without the patient or client, if you will, in the clinic at the time of the measurement. So there is a lot of flexibility built in there. The only requirement to the current hearing instrument is that it's functional. So you don't really need to worry about whether you have a fitting module or if you have the programmer interface for that particular hearing aid that the client is currently wearing. So also there is a good flexibility in offering the best technology without really having to worry about the brand of the current hearing instrument, but more finding out what is on stock that will do the best job possible for this particular patient. The measurements that we are carrying out during HI transitions are 3 measurements per hearing instrument, meaning six measurements in total. We are making measurements at 55 dB SPL where we're using the ISTS, which is the International Speech Test Signal. We repeat the ISTS signal at 80 dB SPL. And then finally, we're making an MPO measurement, which is a maximum power output, at 85 or 90 dB SPL, depending on whether we're making the measurement in real ear or in the test chamber. So that way we are covering from soft to loud speech and also include the max power output that really is kind of test of the, you can say, the audible handbrake in the processing of the hearing instrument. In the example, we'll be using the Oracle. So the Oracle is this modular system from Otometrics that is controlled using the OtoSuite software universe, as we call it. And part of the tests. So user test and special test are special configuration where you can preset all the parameters of how you want OtoSuite and the Oracle to work and make it easy to make repeatable measurements that are consistent every time you make them. As I mentioned before, there are 2 modes of operation. So one is the free fit or the real ear mode where you will be using Oracle free fit, but in this example we'll be using Oracle hit and make the measurements in the coupler. So the procedure is to use the freestyle part of OtoSuite, select the special test called HI transition current instrument, carry out these measurements in a sequence, then select the second part of the special test, which is the new hearing instrument, then making comparisons, and finally adjust the new hearing instrument for the best match. But we will show a video so that you can see exactly what is going on. If you want to dive into details about the performance of the hearing aid, you can turn on the percentile view for more detailed information about the compression and the dynamics, but we will leave that out in this example. So here we have a video where we will show you the HI transition procedure with the Oracle. So this is OtoSuite, and we'll be opening the test selector and locate the special test called HI transition current HI. So that'll bring us directly into the freestyle portion of OtoSuite. We're clicking just to, in this example, to show the measurement for the right hearing aid, and we open the control panel, just click sequence. Everything is pre-programmed based on the special test, and now we are making the measurements in an automatic sequence, starting off with 55 dB. Some of the measurements are speed up in this video just to give you the idea. But a full run through one hearing aid is a little more than 30 seconds, so it's really fast to make these 3 measurements. And again, only one click on the sequence button in this part. So now we are doing 80 dB and now the MPO. So this is the sound that the patient has been used to listen to. So now we are preparing the new hearing aid. In this case, we're using Aventa. We're making a very quick pre-programming, and the first programming doesn't really even matter because we will be matching the new hearing instrument to the performance of the previous one. So now we click Sequence, again after selecting the special test, and now we can look at the difference between the old hearing instrument's performance, or the current, and the new one. So if you want, you can use the marker function in AutoSuite to see the differences, but also it's really easy to look up the curve difference and read it off the graph directly. So now we are in top mode, and here we can say, before making the first measurements, we can make the initial adjustments where we can see in different at different levels for different frequencies, should we increase or decrease the output of the hearing instrument. And this is what we're doing here. Of course, in each specific case, the differences will be different. So this is just an example. So once we've made these initial settings, we will be starting measurements. And you can make the measurements as a sequence, again, for all levels, or you can just, as in this example, click button 4 to make a measurement of the 80 dB. As you can see, the curve is not quite there. So the important thing here is that if we want to make a new measurement and restart it based on having changed the programming of hearing aid, we should use the finalized measurement as in the red square above. And you can see that the green curve is slowly and surely very close to the previous hearing aid curve. And this is basically the approach. So you continue until you feel that the difference is small enough, and now the video is a bit quicker so that you can just see the idea, and you can see how nice and easy these curves start lining up. Finally, we're making a sequence, and we can see here that the MPO needs some additional tweaking until we are satisfied, and there we go. You can see that now the matching of the output of the hearing aid is very, very close. So now we can go back from on top mode back into full screen AutoSuite, and we can enable the feature to benefit view, and on this graph we can see how close the curves really are in difference, because this is what is being shown directly. So this is how easy it is. So having done this, you can say that the new hearing aid, from a dynamic, meaning audibility and comfort point of view, is mapped into what the patient or the wearer has been used to. So did we really address the challenges that we listed initially? Well, let's take them one by one. First, long-term wearers have preferences. Well, we have created a dynamics and the familiarity of these. So we can say check to this. Hesitate to change because of an actual need. Well, once having familiarity in place, there will be less hesitant. Adaptation period when the sound isn't the same. Well, it sounds more the same as with the current hearing instrument. So therefore, we can expect a short adaptation. You can say that for the severe to profoundly hearing impaired, the residual dynamic range and MPO are covered, meaning these criteria or these limits are very important, and they are part of this procedure. They are actually the essence of this procedure. So based on this, the delay is expected to be much shorter, and also as this procedure you spend less time matching the output of the hearing aid, you get more time to dive into what is the new technology about and how it could be put into practice. So in the conclusion, it's an easy procedure. You have the flexibility of running it in a real ear or in a coupler. So you can choose whether you want to use it while the patient is there or while the patient is away. And it's matching the output and dynamic range. This is what this procedure is about. And of course, there are other aspects of sounds that will be kind of part of the remaining discussion into delivering a new technology to a patient. We all know that different brands have their kind of signature sounds, and of course, depending on which new hearing instrument is being delivered, there can be a discussion on some of the advanced features, of course, but also some of the details aspect of sounds outside of what the hearing instrument transition is covering. But without any doubt, this procedure does increase the professionalism of the services provided, because you give the patient a much better first impression when listening to the new hearing instrument, so the whole kind of atmosphere and attitude around getting new technology becomes more positive. And what is the most important part is that this is a facilitator to broaden the access to new technology, because let's be honest, most people are wearing too old technology in terms of what they really need and the type of help that they should be getting from this technology. So that's it so far. Any questions?
Yes, now it's time for questions from the audience. Peter, we have received one already, but I just want to let all of you know, if you have any questions, you can use the menu to the right to post us, to send them to us, and Peter will do his best to answer them. The first question we have, Peter, would you use this approach for both adults and pediatric fittings?
Oh yes, absolutely, because I mean this is about matching the performance or the output of the hearing instrument. So wherever this can be used, both for adults and pediatric fittings, they are equally applicable and equally relevant, I would say.
Okay. Any additional questions from the audience? It does not seem like anybody is typing right now. So I suggest we close the question session for now.
Sure.
If you have additional questions that come up, feel free to email us anytime. Peter's email and mine as well is shown on the screen now. This webinar will be recorded and available, on our website as soon as we can get it uploaded, and we will also send a link to all of you and everybody that have signed up for today's webinar. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for attending, and make sure to spend a few minutes giving us feedback on the webinar. The survey will pop up right after the session. And yeah, thank you again, and we hope to see you here.